Recently, I was driving my son to soccer practice. I was preoccupied with lots of thises and that's. My chest felt tight, my brow was wrinkled. He wasn't in a good mood either. The stereo streamed a High Holy Day playlist that Rabbi Beth had sent out. A song played that I remembered from years ago at the teen service. May I suggest to you, this is the best part of your life. Just turn your head and you'll begin to see the 1,000 reasons just beyond your sight. There's a world that's been addressed to you, intended only for your eyes. Yes, I suggest this is the best part of your life. It hit me in the gut. It was like a shofar blast. I looked over at my son, turned my head and saw, yes, this moment, right now, this is the best part of my life. My chest loosened, my brow relaxed. Over the days since, dinner with my wife and children, watching my child's water polo game, sharing a meal with dear friends, walking the dog, even when a child spoke back or when I found myself sitting in traffic, I had that same thought. This is the best part of my life. Each time, I was overwhelmed with a feeling of love and of being loved. Rabbi Shefa Gold asks us to challenge ourselves, and she challenges herself. Can we bring love to everything we do? She expands on this by commenting on the book, the Song of Songs, the Bible's great book of love poetry. The second verse of which is, Ishakeni minishikot pihu, kiss me with the kisses of your mouth. Rabbi Gold says, interpreting this verse, that God is not some guy who wants to kiss me. God is all of reality who wants to kiss me. So my stance in life has to be one of puckering up. The Kotsk rabbi was famously asked, where do we find God? The Rabbi responded, we find God wherever we let God in. And so it is with love. We find love wherever we let love in. Sitting next to my son in the car, when I let the love in, it changed everything. My voice, my expression, the quality of the silence. We pucker up to all of reality by letting the love in and feeling its life-sustaining power. Even as I cope with recent difficult news about the health of a family member, I ask, how can I bring love to every moment, those easy and difficult? Just asking the question seems to let love in. In the Haftarah portion we read on the second day of Rosh HaShanah in the book of Jeremiah, God says, or if you prefer, all of reality says, Ahavat olam ahavtich, with an everlasting love, I have loved you, and my love will endure. Jews who pray daily say a version of these words twice every day. It's part of a sequence of prayer that I now call love, listen, love. Thank you, Jonathan Baer, for the phrase. Ahavat olam, then Shema, then V'ahavta. We remind ourselves we are loved by a great love, then remind ourselves to Shema, to listen, and then we remind ourselves we are commanded to love God. How? How do we love God? By Shema'ing, by listening to those who call out to us in need and to the deepest voice within ourselves. Just as yoga puts us through physical forms, our prayer service puts us through spiritual forms. The love, listen, love set of prayers reminds us we are loved, tells us to pay closer attention, and then noticing our place in the world calls us to be present in shaping the reality around us in a way that brings more love into the world. Love your God with all your heart, with all your strength, with all your soul, by bringing love through you into the world. The love, listen, love sequence initially intrigued me in part because it reminded me of my experience as a classroom teacher. As a new teacher in Oakland 23 years ago, I realized I had to show my students I cared about them before they would listen to anything I had to say. As I learned to look them in the eye, to smile, to stick with them when they were frustrated, and help them realize they could be successful. Little by little, they began to listen, and eventually I gained their trust. The metaphor of God as teacher is indeed one way we relate to God, but we Jews do not hold on to only one metaphor at a time, for we hold no image of God. We hold on to a multiplicity of ways of relating with God. God as teacher, mother, father, lover, sovereign. Our tradition also intends for us, when possible, to say these prayers not alone, but in a group of at least 10 people. This may be in part because being together, we can experience God's presence differently than alone. One of the pandemic's great lessons about God, I like saying that phrase, one of the pandemic's great lessons about God is how desperately we wanted to be with each other. Zoom is a wonderful tool that lets us connect across space and see each other's faces. But that spark that we get that is unavailable on Zoom, that's only there when we're present with each other physically, that's related to holiness. Love as presence, alluded to by what we feel in the presence of one another, is another angle from which we can understand our relationship with God. When we pray together, we're supposed to feel a sense of being loved as an individual, to stretch to hear what we individually would hear if we but listen as an individual, and how we individually might bring love into the world. We are also meant to feel loved as a community, to pay attention to what we as a group need to hear, and what we as a group might feel called to do as a community to bring love into the world. As we let these prayers evoke a sense of being loved together and being responsible together, it's not just about the emotion. Those who designed this service thousands of years ago intended for us to recall a particular experience. The moment at Sinai when we received Torah. Every time we say Ahava Rabbah, Shema, and V'ahavta, we renew our covenant with God based on love. Once you start looking in our tradition for the connection between revelation and covenant and love, it shows up repeatedly. Consider this beautiful verse from Isaiah. The mountains may crumble and the hills may fade away, but my love for you will not crumble and my covenant will not fade. A covenant, my teacher, Rabbi Tamara Eskenazi, taught, is different from a contract. In a contract, people commit to terms, and if one of the parties breaks the terms, the contract is over. But in a covenant, people commit to each other, and the covenant survives even if one party breaks the terms. Covenant does not fade. Scholar Harry Redner points out that a moral code based on love is not the only way to organize a society. Throughout history, societies have organized around moralities based on loyalty to a state, loyalty to a sense of honor and reputation, loyalty to the notion of caste or status. Unlike these, societies based on a covenant of love are, as Rabbi Jonathan Sachs describes, not linked to the city or the system or the group, but to God, the universe, and the human person. even those of us who don't believe in God can probably identify with the notion that we answer ultimately not to the state or to a status system or anything outside of a standard that we hold, what we might call our conscience. Even those of us with no faith, I think all long for a world in which we protect one another. We all long for a world where everyone can eat good food, sleep in a comfortable bed, sheltered from storm, and have the opportunity to realize our potential as human beings. Humanity knows enough and has sufficient resource to realize that dream. What's lacking is the strength of our collective will. That's one of our purposes for coming here. That's one of our purposes for coming together as a Jewish community, to build our collective will, to connect with the builders of collective will elsewhere across and beyond the faith spectrum, and renew one another's spiritual strength and faith in possibility, understanding that our relationships with each other and the habits that we intentionally form have the power to shape the way we as a society function. One of the Love, Listen, Love prayers, Ahava Rabbah, includes the request of God to allow our hearts to understand and discover, to hear, to learn and teach, and to act in a way that would allow us to establish the world that would be. L'kayem et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha be'ahava, to establish the world that would be if we were to study all of Torah with love. In this season, as we seek personal renewal, might we also seek communal renewal by investing in our relationships, fostering a fellow feeling that privileges the dignity of every human being over status and honor? Could we do that in a way that calls us to the better angels of our nature and guards us against the advertisements and social pressures that would make us beholden to our lesser instincts? If we want to be able to stop plugging the holes in the cracking levees of social structures and rebuild, let us build our community here based on an ethic of love. The more we strengthen our community, the better we'll be able to join with communities rooted in an ethic of love elsewhere. And that strength, I believe, will ripple out so we can more effectively respond to the ills that plague us. We need not start with prescriptions on which we agree. We start with developing our connection to one another. The prescriptions will follow. The strengthening of our relationships grounded in our prayers and texts will build our collective will and will see us through to action. Then we will be able to l'kayem et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha be'ahava, establish the world that would be if only we would study the words of Torah with love. Simple, yet daunting. Where do we find the strength to begin to lean into relationships with each other? To open ourselves to the love all around us? We remind ourselves what is enduring. Ahavat olam ahavtich. I love you with an enduring and everlasting love. May we, this High Holy Day season, hear again the call. The mountains may crumble and the hills may fade away, but my love for you will not crumble, and my covenant will not fade.